I think we know everyone, so I'll dispense with any, intros, but Jeff and I have both worked, in the credit union background in the industry, and we've been with CUDL for a while now. Jeff and I both in different capacities. So we're happy to be able to present some of this information to you. We entertain any questions you may have throughout, and any at the end as well. So feel free to submit anything via chat and or speak up. So what we'll cover today is an industry overview and an economic forecast. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the Vermont market, and then what's new with CUDL and Origence, our new branding. So Jeff, we can go ahead and move to the next slide. So good thing is, right, although, I think some dealers are still maybe a little reluctant to have those one-on-one meetings. It sounds like from the earlier session, everyone's finding a way, to reach out and connect with dealers. I liked it, by phone, by text, through virtual meetings. I think all of those are so important. It is really about the dealer relationship. So glad to hear that you're taking all those measures. As you might know too, our dealer team was also not, out there visiting dealers for a good piece of the summer. And, we also are connecting in those ways as well. So, but as things start to open, we'll definitely be out there continuing to do those visits. We can move to the next one, Jeff. So on this first slide, we're just showing what some of the analysts are predicting for the seasonally adjusted rate of new vehicle sales. And I've got a little bit of commentary here. So the September SAAR of 16.3 million units is the first time that monthly sales have topped 16 million units since February of this year. And though it represents a 4.3% decrease from last September, it is on the way up. So we can go to the next slide. Is everyone seeing that okay? I think I might have, let me just change my view here.
I can see it fine.
Okay, good, because I think I went to, yeah. I had exited full view. So as long as you guys are seeing everything okay, that's great. And now I somehow, bear with me, everyone. I just lost my screen. So here we go. Okay. So as I mentioned, a 4.3% decrease through September, or compared to September 2019. And through the first 3 quarters of the year, new light vehicle sales are down by 19% compared to the same period in 2019. And now these are national numbers. Just keep that in mind, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in Vermont. So the increase in September's raw volume was due to, in part, to the inclusion of Labor Day sales and 2 additional selling days compared to September 2019. Always good to put things in perspective. But consumer demand appears to be recovering from the extremely low demand in April of this year. We can go to the next slide, Jeff. I'm keeping up with myself here. So there is a strong demand for light trucks that continued in September, as did rising transaction prices. Average transaction prices are expected to be up by 5.6% in September, and will likely reach another all-time high, according to J.D. Power. And while all segments saw sales declines compared to September of 2019, the sales of pickups, SUVs, and crossovers all posted gains. So far this year, 3 out of every 4 vehicles sold have been light trucks. You can go to the next one, Jeff. So here we're just showing an additional breakdown of sales by model. The Ford F-150, I think it dropped a bit, but back in that top ranking thus far in 2020. And, you know, you can take a look at how some of the other models are performing there as far as sales are concerned. You know, Christine, I assume you're going to go ahead and send this PowerPoint out to everyone.
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect. We can go to the next slide, Jeff. So here, just a little bit of a snippet in, you know, the buyers. So millennials are still steadily increasing in purchases. I think there was a period of time, you know, where, you know, we were all concerned about millennials and, you know, the fact that they do like to rent a lot of things and maybe they really, you know, weren't vehicle owners, but we're seeing that trend continue where more and more steadily increasing.
Now, Carol, do you think that's because of COVID? People don't want to take public transportation or anything?
I think that does have some impact for sure.
That, and I would also say, Christine, that, you know, especially in some areas, you know, the big market areas, people are starting to move away from now because of COVID. You know, like Boston, everybody's moving outside, in Massachusetts to the suburbs now. So, like, yeah,
They're all
I know
coming to
down here in
Vermont.
Massachusetts, they had a report. Yeah, they are for sure. They had a report the other day on the news I was watching here. They said the mass transit system we have in Massachusetts, they don't expect it to fully recover for you know, another 3 or 4 years at this point.
Oh, wow.
They feel like this is the trend, is people are going to go away from the public transportation because, like you said, because of COVID and other things. So I do think you'll see more and more of this, the millennials, you know, continue to increase as we go forward.
Okay,
Did we lose Carol?
I was gonna say, it looks like she froze.
I think she's frozen, so I'll take over for a minute. So you guys have probably all seen this slide before. The one big change is, you know, collectively the last couple of years, you know, when I started with CUDL, we were down in like the 7th, 8th ranked. And within the last few years, we'd gotten up to number 1. This year, and again, some of that I think is COVID related. You know, the captives have gotten more aggressive. You know, we saw Wells Fargo get really back into the mix this year, but Capital One too, and a lot of that I think is also, you know, they're a little more aggressive maybe on the, you know, not necessarily the subprime, but that mid-prime paper, you know, the stuff maybe that, you know, and unfortunately I missed Steve's Lenders Protection presentation this morning. I had another call to be on, but I'm assuming he covered, you know, that's kind of, you know, some of the areas I think that Capital One's probably buying in is some of the stuff that Lenders Protection would be able to help with. So,
And now, do you also think that it is because, like, Capital One, you know, when you go on to those websites to look for vehicles and stuff like that, I see Capital One always on the side, you know, and whereas if we use our AutoSmart, it would just automatically bring them right to the credit union.
yeah, that's a great point, and I think we were going to touch on that a little later on about that. But yeah, we certainly do see, and there's some things we're doing on our end that you know, we'll talk about, or Carol, maybe if she can get back on, can talk about later on about some of the enhancements, you know, high level stuff. But yeah, we're definitely, the digital retail is such a huge focus right now. And yeah, that's the one thing, and that's why we always talk about AutoSmart and how important it is to utilize that. And I know some of the people on the call, we've done some AutoSmart reviews this year. And anybody who we haven't, we can certainly do that. But yeah, it's a great place for your members to shop on your website and making sure that, you know, that's what's happening, because unfortunately that is what happens, is if they're going out to Edmunds or Car Googles or any of these other sites now, Auto Trader.
Yep.
Yeah, they're all, and that's what's happened, is they're getting directed to this. I actually had a credit union in another state. Interestingly enough, they had partnered with Carvana, and they had a link on their website to Carvana. But the problem is, once you click to go to Carvana's site, they had an application button there, and it wasn't going back to the credit union. And I was actually the one who told the credit union about that, and they were none too happy to find that out, because it was actually going to another finance source. So
Yikes. Carol's unfrozen.
Carol,
I'm back.
I think Carol's back with us.
I don't know what happened. All I did was exit or went into full screen and something happened. And I don't know. I must have a sensitive connection here or something. So yeah, crazy
No problem.
stuff.
I jumped in and that's also the presentation. Everyone else is kidding.
He saved the day. Thanks, Jeff.
Right. So
Apologies,
we're just
everybody.
talking about the rankings and how, some of the captives and even Capital One, and mentioned how they're kind of buying in the same spectrum as maybe what Lenders Protection may have talked about earlier today. So
Right.
with that, I'll let you jump back on.
Okay, thank you. So this is just showing what's going through the the CUDL system and the new car versus the used car. We did a quick little comparison to see what was going on in the Vermont market. And if we look at all lenders in the Vermont market, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with the state. And this is direct and indirect. So the new percentage is 39% and the used is 61% for all lenders. And then if we look at credit unions only in Vermont, credit unions are getting 13% new vehicles and 87% used. So a little bit off on the new vehicle purchase or the new vehicles loans. But, I think all things considered, we're certainly still, you'll see in a few slides how things are looking with this COVID environment. So I thought that might be of interest to you. And then, here's the statistic on, the number of borrowers that are under a forbearance. I was curious what you guys are seeing in your area, if anyone's, wants to speak up or enter anything through chat. We had some credit unions that earlier in COVID did blanket extensions and, if the member still wanted to continue to make a payment, they did. But, there was a bit of a mix on that. I'm just curious what you guys are seeing, if extensions or forbearances are still pretty rampant in the area, or has it really slowed down? Anyone?
Must be, no one's doing extensions?
So Valerie just entered a chat. So theirs have slowed down. That's, I think, what we're seeing. It's I think credit unions really stepped up early on this COVID issue and, did the right thing for members. I think the interesting thing here is that the percentage for credit unions is considerably lower than other entities. So if anyone has any other thoughts on that, certainly go ahead and, enter that, your thoughts through chat. So on this particular slide, we're showing the, the comparison of 2019 to 2020 on the, as far as the COVID impact. This one is taking a look at all application volume, and you can see that more recently, the application volume is exceeding where we were last year. So that's a good indication of, how things are coming back. And then on the next slide, I believe we're showing, this is Vermont. So I hesitate to do anything with my slide, my view right now. So I'm not seeing the top part, but Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong. I think I've got the order.
Yep, no, this is Vermont applications, and yeah, so it slowed down a bit up in Vermont from what we're seeing. As you guys can see on the slide, it's we're a little, the last couple of weeks we're a little behind on application volume, but some of these things are just seasonally specific, or it could be what's going on in every different state. So.
And then this is the funding activity. So this again is national. This is indirect. I didn't mention that earlier. So you can see, the huge dip, and we probably talked about this earlier in the year. I think we had another meeting, and, the significant dip back in that March, April timeframe. And then when it rebounded quite a bit, and then, there were, some weeks there where we were under 2019 levels, but, now we're pretty much mirroring what we saw last year. And then this is the Vermont funding activity, 2019 to 2020. Mirrors a little bit what we're seeing at the national level. Most recently, it looks like funding's exceeded where we were last year. Okay, and just a little bit of additional commentary. So, what we're projecting to see, 2021, I think I'm on the wrong slide here, I apologize. So another 3.3% in 2022, yet still below normal levels. I've got a little additional commentary I want to share with you. So we know that there were plant closures in the second quarter, so automakers have had difficulty restocking inventory on dealer lots to pre-COVID levels. And with model year changeovers in auto plants, that's put some additional pressure on inventory levels, though we do expect overall inventory to continue increasing through the fourth quarter. At the end of September, inventory on dealer lots totaled 2.66 million units, and that was up 3.6 compared with August of this year, but still down 26.7% compared to September of last year. Another interesting little tidbit is you guys don't dabble in leases, but the credit unions that were doing leasing and our lease partner CULA did offer lease extensions as well in March, April, and May. So those consumers will likely return to the new vehicle market in the next few months, which should boost sales in the fourth quarter. So another promising, aspect of this whole scenario here. We can go on to the next slide, Jeff. Okay. So Jeff's gonna.
So now I'll jump in here and just a quick update on the Vermont market, and some of this I think will kind of mirror what we're seeing nationally as well. But one of the things that Carol and I want to do is kind of take a look at through auto count, and you can see we kind of color coordinated to make it nice and vibrant. But it's just interesting to see that some months there's actually been overall exceeded volume in the state, and then others it was, and again, this is because it's auto counts based on registrations. So I think there's probably a lag where they saw that the dip in registrations is May and June, which is probably from dealers were slower to register stuff that they were maybe selling or not selling in April and things like that. So
DMV wasn't open too.
That was the other thing I was going to ask you guys. I
Yeah.
couldn't remember every state, what they do. I know there's been different shutdowns, so that certainly explains a lot of it too. And overall, you could see though, total registrations are down, which would kind of go in line with sales. But the other interesting piece of it that we found is that there's less lenders that are doing the state. And again, this is all based on auto counts, so this takes into everything, captives, banks, obviously credit unions, buy here, pay here's, everything like that. So, the total number of lenders that are doing business in Vermont has decreased, as you could see. And then, but there's been a few more, as Carol was mentioning with the leasing, there's some more leasors that are up there. And it looks like, roughly about, the total leases, kind of rough math is maybe, 1 out of every 5 cars a lease right now. So I know some of the people on the call here have talked to us about the partnership with CUDL and things like that. And, it's just food for thought, that is another piece of the market that maybe, could help some credit unions up in Vermont. So the year over year, we kind of just took a look at it and the percentage change. And again, it's kind of the same story. I think everybody's feeling this, and everybody, has been impacted by it. But I don't think it's as drastic as a decrease as what the total auto count is. So I think that's the kind of the silver lining there. I think the credit unions, it's more the other lenders that have kind of really backed off, other than, some of the aggressive, ones like Capital One and things like that. Interestingly enough, I would have expected when I did this that New Hampshire, a lot of you when I talked to earlier in the year were kind of, when Vermont was shut down, New Hampshire really didn't. So I know some of you do lend into New Hampshire, and I would have thought that, that percentage change wouldn't have been as significant, but it's actually more significant than Vermont. So, just curious to what you guys are seeing nowadays. If you guys are kind of seeing, volumes level off between, Vermont and or New Hampshire, or if you guys are picking back up again. So if anyone wants to chime in and kind of let us know what you guys are seeing, that'd be great. Or we can just move on. Nobody wants to jump in. No problem. It's Friday. It's a long day. I get it. So what's interesting is, and I was on the last session too, and so when the Royers name popped up, I kind of piqued my interest because this is just a list of the top dealers based on how many loans they've done with all you folks. And so certainly Royers has done quite a bit of business with I'm sure many of the different credit unions that are on the call. So yeah, Christine, I would just reiterate what you said. I'd like to get a little more information from the credit unions about who the applicant is. Maybe we can, you and Mary Beth can do a little more research on that to see what's happening and
yeah,
what's
definitely,
going on there.
because maybe it's just the one F&I guy, so that maybe we just talk to him. It may not be Royers Auto Sale. It may, just be that one person. So who knows?
Yeah, the concern I would have there is if this member's coming in, I mean, typically, when you're buying a car, even if obviously it's a used car, but, you're not going to get the same value from month to month. So that would concern me, that it's not, like Doug had kind of said, there's something strange going on there. Is it, somebody who's a friend of the dealership or somebody who works for it, and basically they're just churning over the cars every month. So, it's basically like getting a free rental car every month, because they're never making a payment. And
Right,
of course,
exactly.
in the credit union side, if you guys are paying flats, and typically, when I was on the credit union level, and this would happen from time to time, where you'd have a situation where maybe, we financed a car, we paid the dealer the flat, and they totaled the car in the first month, or they
Right.
were unhappy with the car, which does happen, and they bring the car back and they want to do another one. Well, sure, we would do that, but we would also just not pay the dealer a second time. So
Right.
that's something else I would advise the credit unions. If it's within, most credit unions have the chargeback period, but the same thing I would say is, apply that to the front end too, and that may, stop that kind of thing. Because, if that's just all they're doing is just getting a flat every other month or an incentive from the credit union, I would say,
Right,
that's
you
a
gotta
good way to
stop.
put a stop to that.
And
Yeah, exactly.
Valerie said she noticed the dollar amount has gone down for her.
Okay, yeah, I could see that in terms of the
Actually,
the types of
Christine,
loans.
Oh, yes,
I
sorry.
was just mentioning, notice the dollar amount for the 188 loans. When you look at the average
Oh.
loan size, it's 23,000. It's $23,000 per loan. So it's a really
lot.
high average loan amount when you compare it with some of these other folks. Of course, All Around Power is not a car dealership and
Right.
so on and so forth, but
Sure.
just interesting. That's all.
Yep. No, thank you.
Right. So, I mean, I'm sure you guys are all more familiar with some of these dealerships than I am, and I know Mary Beth is, but certainly just wanted to kind of, these are certainly dealers that are engaged in the CUDL platform. So, if you're already doing business with them, great. And if not, they may be ones that you want to also help develop your relationship with, because they're already engaged with the other credit unions. And, we want to take away from the Capital Ones and whatnot. And the last slide, this is 2019 data for Vermont. It was interesting because I compared it with 2018, and there were actually 3 less new car dealerships in the state. Total sales was the same according to NADA. There was about 7,000 more jobs created, which of course would make payroll and all that going up. So it's just some interesting stuff. I think what's going to be interesting is really to see what happens when the 2020 data comes out, because that'll really, I would expect the total jobs and things like that to significantly change because of what's gone on this past year. But
And
unfortunately, they only put this out once a year. Go ahead,
and
guys.
has any of the dealerships that we know has anyone closed that anybody's aware of? Yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
heard
you guys and
anything.
Mary Beth might know more than I would on the dealership side of it. I'm sure, I know there's been, some independence. I would say from our perspective, nationally, I know Carol and I can talk to that, is that we didn't see the number of cancellations or closures that we expected.
That's good.
So and that has been a good thing. And even the dealers that when things did start to, get a little hairy in that March, April, and even May times, our reps, Mary Beth and other reps around the country, they really worked with the dealerships to kind of, figure out ways to get them through that tough period on their end and to keep them on, just knowing that, better times would be back, and, make sure that we kept them engaged so that, when things did start to improve, that our, our credit unions and dealers still had that partnership. So. And now I'm going to give it back to Carol, because she's a little more in, gets a little more of the corporate stuff than I do. So she has a little more insight knowledge as to some of the roadmaps and things that we're going through. And so I'll let her take the lead on the next segment.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. You can go to the next slide, please. So just a real quick recap. This is the number of credit union clients that we work with nationally. And I want to say probably when we had our last roundtable, we might have been in the 14,000 range for, dealer clients. We're well over 15,000 now. So, happy to report, that we continue to add dealers. Not a lot in the Vermont area because, we're pretty saturated there, but if there's ever any kind of an acquisition, we're right there to make sure we get, that new dealer signed up and taken care of. Jeff, we can go on to the next one. So just a quick overview of our entire suite of products. I think you're probably familiar with things. I'll mention the branding because some of you have probably heard this, Origence brand, and, how did that all come about? So the parent company name is still CUDL. That's our corporate name, the corporate entity. We felt that rebranding was very important because so many lenders just recognized us for the indirect, and that was not just our existing clients, but potential new credit union clients as well. So we felt that in order to really represent the additional channels that we were entering into, that it just made sense to do a branding change. I think the unfortunate thing there is, we rolled it out, made the big announcement at GAC earlier this year, and then COVID hit. And so, we, as well as everybody else, are a little more preoccupied with other things. You've heard, that we have launched a mortgage LOS. Well, we're close to launching with our first credit union, and that's, under that Origence brand. We still have our full loan origination system, L360. The indirect lending falls under the CUDL brand. That's what how dealers recognize us is CUDL for the indirect. Everything that's lender facing, however, we're doing, that rebranding to Origence. That's originate and experience, a combination of those two words to, really represent where we see our business going. A couple other notes. So the auto shopping, that's of course AutoSmart. I think that has played a very important role, in this environment. We actually recently polled at the Auto Finance Summit. We did a poll of dealers, and they're requesting more digital shopping and financing capabilities from their lending partners. And certainly the consumer shopping preferences are shifting. We did a survey prior to the Auto Finance Summit and during the Auto Finance Summit. And of the dealer respondents, 81% stated that it was very important to digitize shopping or browsing. And 74% highly prioritize online loan and credit applications. And 68% indicated loan pre-qual and pre-approval should be completed digitally. So, you know, we've got some solutions there with AutoSmart, with Smart Approval. If you haven't already kind of revisited, you know, how you're utilizing, incorporating AutoSmart or possibly Smart Approval in your member experience, we're more than happy to assist you with that and talk about best practices. So it's what dealers as well as your members are coming to expect these days in this more virtual environment. I'd also mention that we are working on a beta for AutoSmart for a digital deal. We're recruiting some credit unions now, and we're going to go through several stages of that to kind of fine tune where we see that digital deal going. And, you know, as that continues to be tested, I think you're going to see some additional you know, functionality with AutoSmart in this digital deal. The digital deal, what we mean by that is just, you know, getting that member pre-approved and then actually creating a separate queue on the dealer portal side where dealers will actually be able to get those digital deals. So we want to make sure we're kind of really closing that gap and that making that process full circle on the member experience side and getting your member loans or, you know, new member loans back to the credit union.
I have someone posted a question asking what is the difference between point of sale and retail lending? Is one on spot?
Oh. Yeah, one would be the on spot. So that would be the retail lending. So basically it's a similar thing to indirect lending, but with other types of providers or merchants. Jeff, do you want to elaborate on that anymore?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I know Christine and I have talked about that in the past and probably some other credit unions, but yeah, that would be more if you want to do, you know, the two options. It's, you know, closed-end loans at either like a doctor's office or, you know, the dentist or the vet or what have you, you know, or, you know, even, you know, buying different types of appliances or things like that. There's a portal we can do for merchants that allows them to submit loans to you guys through L360. You know, it'd just be another queue in terms of what you guys do if you're using L360. And that's the key. You would have to be on L360 to utilize it. So those of you who don't use our system, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. But it is a good way, I think, you know, and you can set up either a credit card program or an installment program or both. You know, it's a little bit of a different market, and it's certainly something that if you're interested in more of a in-depth conversation, I'd be glad to have with you.
Thanks, Jeff. And under that Origence column there, we also have consulting. We do have a team on the advisory services side. And if you feel there's a need to look at more automation, maybe in your underwriting, we have a couple of folks that will come in and review how your underwriting is set up and look at your workflow and just try to make things more streamlined and create more efficiencies for you. So if that's something that we haven't talked to you about and you think that might be beneficial, we're more than happy to have that conversation with you. Under the CU Direct Connect, I think you may be aware that, a little bit more than a year ago, we acquired CU Direct Connect, which was a separate QSO out in Denver, Colorado, an indirect QSO. And then we combined the services that they were doing along with our CUDL Complete department for full service processing for credit unions that see a need for outsourcing either all or some of their, processes. And Jeff's going to talk a little bit more in detail, on what they actually do in a few more slides. And then on the dealer side, we also have the Vero and the Fidelis solutions on the dealer side. And then Intuvo is our CRM solution as well. You can go to the next slide, Jeff. So these are, just to paint a little bit more of a picture on what our primary goals are, for the coming year. One is to really execute on the enterprise origination platform. So you can go to the next slide, Jeff. So, we started talking about this back in 2018, and we described, how we saw our solutions evolving. To kind of, a lot of information here. So what does this really mean? So for credit unions that still want, to just use the indirect, it continues to work, the way it is. For credit unions that maybe want to expand some of the offerings that we're bringing to the table, our vision is to make sure that we're bringing the best experience for members as well as the credit union. And so when we talk about the consumer portal, that is an enterprise consumer portal will be where the member goes to, see what the status is of their loan applications, whether it's, maybe indirect only or something on the retail side. And to give an example of how this will work, there will be different components, but if you think of maybe member having to, or you needing to have verification of income or a copy of a driver's license or something like that, that information that the member will upload into the consumer portal will be accessible for whichever loan channel the credit union is participating in. So it's just that improved member experience. And then of course we'll have the sales portal and then the fulfillment portal as well. So you can go to the next slide, Jeff. So this just kind of summarizes a little bit more, where we sit today. So what was delivered, the mortgage LOS, we're getting ready to launch that shortly. Mortgage POS, the consumer POS next year. And then we'll also be moving the mortgage and Intuvo to the cloud. And then what remains is some additional enhancements on the consumer LOS, the sales portals, some embedded analytics and embedded Intuvo for CRM, and moving the remaining products to the cloud, and then continue our infrastructure build out. So we have really lofty ambitions here, but all, aimed at improving that experience on the member side as well as on the credit union side. And we'll continue as these things evolve. I think the other thing I'd mention too is we were talking about the enterprise consumer portal last year. And I believe that we expected, and we do have that launched in some credit unions, kind of as a beta right now, but we're a little bit behind on how, we've been able to launch these new solutions primarily because of COVID. We had some lofty goals to hire, I think budgeted, we were gonna hire 120 additional staff this year, and most of that was on the technology front, to build, what we needed to build for these new solutions. And unfortunately, we're a little bit behind because of course we had to revisit our budget too. And things are, like I said, running a bit behind, but I think the vision is still there. And I think when, as we continue to launch these things, we'll keep you posted and let you know how things are going. So it basically-
Carol,
go ahead, Jeff. Mm-hmm.
I was just going to chime in and say, the other piece of it that I want to make sure that we comment on is that, these enhancements and these, all this investment that we're putting in as a company, even just, you know, for those of you who are just using the indirect channel, and you can kind of, this chart kind of shows some of the enhancements. I think some of the stuff that we're building for the whole portal and or the whole platform is going to also enhance the experiences through the indirect channels, because we'll have this additional functionality and integrations and technology and things like that. So, so I think that's a key part to it, because I think, you know, in some of the conversation we've had with other credit unions, they say, well, you're only focusing on one area, and are you going away from indirect? And that's not the case. We're really doubling down on this, because we want to make the experience better for whatever you utilize us for.
Yeah.
So, so I just want to make sure we we commented on that as well.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think that you'll see that in one of these next slides here. So, you know, protect and grow the CUDL auto lending. We were certainly hearing, getting a lot of feedback from credit unions, because I think our clients were hearing so much about the mortgage initiative and saying, wait, what's happening with the indirect? Are you ignoring, you know, additional development on the indirect side? And that's certainly not the case. So Jeff, you can go to the next slide. So we have talked with, this is how, you know, credit unions are, you know, projecting 2021 auto lending growth. And this is representative of the 18 of the largest credit union auto lenders. So, you know, if you're, you know, just starting your forecasting for next year, here's where the top 18 are, you know, seeing things go. So, you know, something that might be helpful for you. We certainly, as Jeff said, we're certainly still supporting the indirect. When we, you know, look at the revenue that's derived from the indirect channel, it is significant. But we're also looking, and we don't see that to decline at all. We'll continue to see growth there as we bring on additional credit unions and continue to grow the dealer network as well. But, you know, thankfully, our executives as well as our board know that we need to look at diversification. And so getting into the mortgage arena and some of these other solutions does help us, you know, diversify our revenue stream, and that gives us the ability to continue to build and grow and bring additional enhancements on the indirect side as well. Jeff, you can go to the next one. This just gives a little bit of a picture on our dealer portal roadmap for 2021. E-contracting is something that's on the table. You know, e-contracting can mean a lot of different things to, you know, lenders, dealers. There's, I think the thing to know here is that there's not one solution for e-contracting. And I would say, Christine, when we get closer to having an e-contracting solution, that might be a good presentation to have with the group.
Yes, I agree.
Because I'm not the expert. We've got a team that has done a lot of research on this. And like I said, I know enough to know that there isn't one solution that fits all. And we're taking that into consideration and looking at what's going to be, you know, the best solution for us, so that really can respond and be a solution for multiple players, because not every dealer, not every lender is going to utilize the same type of e-contracting solution. So we need to make sure that, you know, we're able to accommodate multiple varieties there.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yep. Jeff is going to talk more about the OCR, the document recognition, and the stacking component, which he has had some conversations with some of you already about that. But all of those things are on the roadmap to improve on the dealer portal side as well. Hey, Jeff. So here we go. Document stacking, curation, and data extraction. Jeff, do you want to kind of talk about that briefly?
Sure. So, and like you mentioned, so there's a few folks on the call that we've already had some. So currently we have some of this process available through CU Direct Connect or CUDL Complete as you know it. But it is on the roadmap to eventually get it out there so that you'll be able to do it at the credit union level. I think right now it's important, you know, the ones that we've talked to, you know, the solution right now, unfortunately, is only to go through CU Direct Connect, but it is working. We have a lot of clients. I know some of you have gotten some references from me as well, and some other credit unions throughout the country that are very happy with it. But essentially what it will allow it to do is we're taking that technology from SmartFund and enhancing it, where when the documents come in, they can be sorted and recognized through some artificial intelligence and things like that. And it allows that to put the document in the order. As you guys know, the dealer uploads the forms and you may get them in whatever order you want them. And some of the more advanced stuff we're looking to implement next year is with the artificial intelligence is some, you know, additional character recognition. And so that when the smartphone comes in, you'll be able to get the document in the order you want it, all the forms that you need. You know, if you want the contract at third page, it would be there. The driver's license would be the same spot every time. It would also recognize things, so it would be able to read off of the law contract or the banker's contract, you know, the VIN number, and recognize that and match it with the thing. So essentially, it's going to, you know, speed up some time, you know, and automate a lot of things where, you know, your funders can be, you know, and even maybe your underwriters can be a little more, what's the word I'm looking for, is they can focus, you know, on really just honing in. So it should cut down their time for, you know, in terms of reviewing that whole stare and compare thing, you know, and we'll be able to automate a lot of that stuff through technology to be able to, so that way you guys obviously, you know, and for dealers, that's a huge value add. As you guys know, you all use, you know, SmartFund now, and you know how much the dealers like that. And, you know, I think this year, especially, the percentages across the board have really increased. And so this will just kind of even take that to the next step. So that's kind of where we're headed there.
Right. As Jeff mentioned, right now that resides with CU Direct Connect, or we might refer to it as BPO, Business Process Outsourcing.
Right.
And we will have a beta client here that will be, before the end of the year, I believe, that will be working within L360 to actually do the same thing. So be able to provide that solution to credit unions, you know, no matter which, you know, platform you're using. So, and then one of the third huge initiative for us is improving service capabilities and our service culture. You can move to the next slide, Jeff. As you know, the fourth quarter of last year, we did a pretty significant realignment of our sales teams as well as our support teams. We went from the 5
I think she froze again.
She froze again. Yeah. All right, I'm jumping back in. So I think she was going to mention that we switched from the 5 regions to more of the realignment, and hence that's why, you know, I'm working with you folks, the league, and also the credit unions, is to we in the past on both sides. I think, you know, you're all aware, and Mary Beth did a great job, but she wore a lot of hats. She was working on the credit union side, working with the dealers and doing that. And just like it works with credit unions, you know, the more hats you wear, and I'm sure you guys all feel that pain, is you're dealing with different, you know, different things and doing, you know, several different tasks. I think, you know, the key to the realignment for us was we split up the sales and the, you know, what we call the client experience side, so that we could be more hands-on with our credit unions as well as our dealers. So, and spend more time. I think that's, as we've grown as a company, that's what we had learned, that some of that stuff was starting to wane. So, you know, that's really where the client experience and the relationship management comes in. And again, I can tell you, I was on a call earlier today that, and this is really, you know, from our CEO down, it's to, you know, I'm sure you guys have seen this week, especially with the new release, we did have some minor blips, and some may say a little more than minor, but the response time on our end, you know, we are, you know, the software and things like that. Every software technology company is going to have some bumps. But what we want to do is make sure that we're as transparent with our credit unions as possible when things do happen, and get them resolved quicker. And again, I think, from an internal perspective, I could say, our internal communication is better than it's ever been. I think our response time has improved, and I think it's going to continue to improve. So I think that's kind of the goal as us as an organization, is, kind of that better experience for you guys as our partners. So
I'm back, I hope.
I think Carol's back. I think I jumped in and handled what you were going to say, Carol. I don't know if I did exactly what you said, but
Here's
at least, kind of what we said. So.
I can still hear you guys. I can see you guys. I don't know what's happening. I have, using my new laptop, I have a new camera, and I have new internet. So go figure.
That's not weird.
Not connecting.
Must be the wind.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe. But
Sure.
yeah, for any of you, that have experienced, any of the, we've had an import-export delay, over the last couple of days. We did a huge release on Tuesday evening. That was a release that was, supposed to happen back in July. The reason it was delayed, there were some senior management decisions to incorporate additional monitoring and additional items that would improve the performance. It was maybe not the most popular decision. And we knew that release this week was really jam-packed with a lot of code change. It was fine on Wednesday, and then I believe Wednesday night there was an additional patch, and that seems to be what created the issues we experienced yesterday, although we don't have the root cause analysis yet. But what I can share with you and reiterate what Jeff said is that there is, at the highest level, a significant focus on making sure that we're doing a better job of limiting the outages, looking at it at a component level. There will be more transparency on system status by component level. So just know that there is a real significant emphasis on that. And we know that we cannot afford, to have outages like we experienced, earlier this year. So we recognize it's important to your business, and you can't have those kinds of impacts that, prevent you from, funding loans or decisioning applications or whatever it is you're working on. Okay, Jeff.
So yeah, just a real quick, and I know we kind of mentioned before the CUDL Connect, the business process outsourcing, and I know, like I said, a few of you, we've already had some very involved talks, but just as a kind of, for those who we haven't really talked about or whatnot, it is a nice feature that we have, because there's a lot of different things they can do right now, and they can do it, it's a la carte, so you could do one piece of what they offer or not. And especially right now, I think this year has shown, and we've had a lot more credit unions go to this because of the COVID situation. I think everybody's sick of hearing that. But the remote workforces and things like that, and what happens if you have people out, or you have, staffing or what have you. What the BPO offers is a way to have additional staffing, or, after hour support or what have you. Even as simple as I have a couple credit unions that signed up just to have them process their adverse action letters, so the person in the branch didn't have to do it anymore, because, the person was working remotely now, and they didn't have a way to print all the adverse action letters and things like that, so, and get them mailed out. So they can do all sorts of different things, and they can be, they can do everything for you, or they could be a support for, if you had a funder out or something happens, or you had a few, you can flip a switch and they can process things for you. So it's just another way. And I think it's one of those things that maybe, in the past wasn't really vocalized to the credit unions that we offer this service. And it is a much more robust now that we acquired CUDL Connect and kind of merged the two companies. But certainly it's a good way to keep, as you need those, the loan goals that you guys have, as, just another source of, without having to, hire a new in-house staff and go through HR and get them trained and things like that. It's literally, we can almost flip a switch and, kick things over to us. Or again, like I said, after hours decisioning, nights and weekends, things like that. So if you guys have any questions about that, just like anything else, feel free to reach out to me. We can have a deeper conversation. And the other thing, and I know Christine was actually on, I don't know if anybody else was on, but we did a more of a fireside chat maybe about a month ago or so. And so one of the things we've seen is a big growth thing is, again, as car sales have waned this year, but people still have cars. And I think one of the biggest growth areas we've seen is the indirect refinances. More and more people are learning. It's surprising that people still don't know to this day that you can refinance your car. I mean, people sure know how to refinance their mortgage. So we actually have a preferred relationship with 4 of the largest indirect refinance brokers in the country. So Rate Genius, AutoPay, Moto Refi, and Yield Solutions Group. And again, it works through the L360 and the CUDL system on their side. So there's really no sort of training that needs to happen. It's more just if it's something you guys are interested in, it's just another way. It's another avenue to pick up some additional loans. And in this case, it's a performing loan. You can kind of see how the loan's performed and whether you want to buy the paper versus a new car purchase or a new purchase at the dealership. So certainly, if you guys are interested in talking with any of these folks and kind of seeing how that fits, again, kind of same with the BPO, just let me know. I'll be glad to have a deeper conversation about it and how it all works. And we can kind of put you together with these folks, whether it be Rate Genius, AutoPay, or Moto Refi, or the Yield Solutions Group.
I still
each
have,
one of them.
Oh, and I was gonna say, and
Go
I
ahead.
still have the fireside chat. So if anybody wants a copy of that video, I can forward it to you.
Right.
But it's really cool. It's just like Goss Dodge. It would be Rate Genius in there, which is neat.
Correct. We have they had on the fireside chat, we had a representative from each one of the organizations kind of talking about what they do and how they do it. And it's really tailored, just like anything else, to your credit unions and your program. So they know, your field of membership and what to send you. So if you signed up and did business with them through the CUDL platform, you're not going to get applications from somebody living in Florida. It's not a situation like that. They kind of hone it in. And they really do a good job, and take in terms of like the lien. That's one thing I've, in the calls I've been with them is making sure the lien's transferred properly and all that stuff. So they really handle all that stuff. And again, they could speak more directly about how they manage their process to do that. But again, it's just another source of loan volume. And I think it's one of those things that, it's worth mentioning. And it's certainly another opportunity, another channel to get more auto loans, especially in the market we're in these days. So I wanted to make sure we just kind of let you guys know about that partnership with those groups.
And then a question was asked if you guys are working on an app that can be accessed by the phone so that when they're out on the road, they can see the deal and everything right on their phone.
So I would say not necessarily an app. I would say Carol kind of touched on it when we move to the cloud and some of these things. And so eventually L360, as you know it right now, as everybody knows, it's downloaded onto your desktop or your laptop or what have you. And, eventually that will be more of a web-based platform. Again, that's kind of in that whole, when we talk about the technology and the roadmap. And I should also comment on the dealer side, there will be a quote unquote app that they'll be able to access that will be able to give them updates. That's a little different. But yeah, I wouldn't say there would be necessarily an app for the credit unions. It would be more just we're going to shift the lending 360 to a more web-based. So that, yeah, if you really wanted to, be on a tablet or a phone, I mean, some of the cell phones nowadays are pretty, the new Apple 12, the big one now, it's like 7 inches or something I saw the other day. So I don't know that I would want to underwrite on that, but I'm getting older, so, but I'm sure my kid, I mean, she was doing her college applications a couple of years ago on her phone, and I thought that was crazy. So I'm sure there'll be people out there who will be comfortable with using it that way. But yeah, so that, I don't know if that totally answers the question, but that's kind of where we're headed.
It did. Thank you.
And then Carol, I don't know if, I guess I can, touch on this, for, kind of our plans for the next year. I think we're all kind of, and I appreciate everybody, sticking it out all day with the different, the roundtable events that the league has put on today. I know a lot of you and a lot of us are, kind of using this webcast and the virtual world has kind of become the quote new normal, but I think we kind of expect that to continue. And a lot of times I do try and, I know corporate sends out a lot of these things to you guys when we have webcasts and things like that. I've tried to push those out to you guys as well as often as I can. And Christine, maybe the other thing we can do is start making sure we put some of this stuff in the newsletter as well, just to make sure that, but yeah, we're going to continue with some quarterly webcasts. If you guys have had a chance, or if you haven't, we've been doing some economic updates with Elliot Eisenberg, the bow tie guy, and he's great. And even if he makes economics sound pretty simple, and he is pretty entertaining. He can't jump on tables when virtually, but he is certainly. Again, we'll continue to do some quarterly product stuff. And again, as Carol said, as some of these events, similar to that fireside chat and things like that, we'll continue to have those. The lender, our big lending conference, which is now called Originate, which was canceled this year. Unfortunately, similar to, you guys' the league event, it's to be determined for next year. And I think it's just like everybody else. I think, we're going to continue to see a lot of remote and digital events, in the coming months. And, I think everybody will be looking forward to the day when we can all get back to, actually having, events and, being able to be around each other and actually, see each other in person. But until then, we're going to continue to do things virtually and be there to kind of, make sure we're supporting you in that way. So that was what we had for the day. So if anyone has any questions or comments or anything that we didn't cover, we'd be glad to answer.
Yes, and I thank you so much, Carol and Jeff. We really do appreciate this. I have all these sessions were recorded, so I will be sending them out along with the PowerPoints for everybody. And if there is anything that you ever want us to touch on, in the future, just let us know, and then we can gather everything together and have another roundtable. And if there is any issues, with a particular dealership, just let us know, and then I can start investigating. And then, the more information that I have, the better, so that I can really narrow down and find out what's going on at that dealership.
Well, we again appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and let us know how we can support you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.